Are you captivated by knowing more about your dream life? Do you wish you not only recalled your dreams, but also wish to understand them? Well, if so, join me and Leah Bolen as we break down how our dreams are here to support you in processing your waking life and how there's hope for even the most restless of sleepers out there. Leah is an integrative adult sleep coach and certified dream work practitioner who empowers individuals to enhance their sleep quality and harness the power of their dreams to enrich their waking lives. So let's dive into this powerful episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode. Okay, so welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen Spielman, and today I am with Leah Bolen, and I'm very, very excited. She was recommended to the podcast through a local friend, Molly Lundak, who had seen her at Miraval, and I'm just so grateful for the connection. I'm going to read a little bit of Leah's bio because I think it says a lot of the what you want to know before we dive into the interview. But Leah is an integrative adult sleep coach and certified dream work practitioner who empowers individuals to enhance their sleep quality and harness the power of their dreams to enrich their waking lives. So I really love this part of your bio, Leah. Having navigated the corporate landscape for over 30 years, you bring a wealth of firsthand knowledge about the pressures and challenges inherent in the business world. Starting your career as a receptionist in an advertising office, you were determined to climb the ladder of success. Along the way, you confronted and overcame the harsh realities of insomnia and sleep issues brought on by stress. And I love that because I believe that a lot of our listeners experience sleep issues and disturbances. So we'll get to some of those cores. And it was your victory over your own sleep challenges, fueled by the wisdom gleaned from your dreams, propelled you into this new line of work around sleep and dream work. And so now you're combining your skills from your corporate career with this newfound expertise that you can tell us how many years old it is, but to offer anyone who's coming in your path this transform, like to be able to experience this transformative relationship to rest. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love that the way you said that. You are the sleep and dream specialist at Miraval Resort and Spa in Arizona. I was lucky enough to go to that once in my life so far. So it's time for me to come back and meet you in person.
Yes.
And you're the creator of the Dream Interpretation Station podcast and an acting member of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. So welcome to Mystical Sisterhood.
Well, thank you, Maria. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and with your listeners.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. I've been wanting to dive into dream work on the podcast for a while. So you were the perfect person to come on my path. And I'm excited to dive in. I gave a little bit of your background, but can you say more about how you first became interested in dream work and what inspired you enough to make a career out of it?
Oh, I would love to share that. And for me, I came to my dream life really through probably my corporate life, I could say, because it was early in my early 20s, I started to become very ambitious. I had this idea I was going to climb the corporate ladder. I was at the time just in a very early stages of, I was actually a receptionist at a local advertising office, but I was getting this idea that, ooh, I want to be a corporate gal. I want to like be jet setting around. I want to be wining and dining with clients. A lot of movies like Baby Boom and Working Girl were popular at that time, and that looked pretty awesome to me. And I am an ambitious A-type control personality by nature, and I really grabbed hold of this idea and started to forge as best I could, growing some sort of a grounding for a career. And then early in that, suddenly I was having a lot of sleep issues. I was having terrible bouts of insomnia. I was having sleep paralysis. I was having night terrors. I was grinding my teeth. Like all these stressors were showing up in the night. and they were showing up in my dream life. I really didn't have much of a recall of much of a dream life growing up. Dreams were mostly dismissed in my home. I tease that if I took a dream to my mom, she always just chalked it up as something I ate. So
Mm.
that's the end of that topic. And I was pretty sure like these dreams were trying to get my attention, but they were a little scary at the time. I was having a lot of running, fleeing, hiding, being chased, just anxiety filled dreams. And there were no Google searches then, or I'm sure I would have been all over Google. I found at the bookstore what were called dream dictionaries. And I wanted to start to figure out my dreams. And I thought, ooh, someone knows what all of these mean. So I bought like all the versions they had at the bookstore and started to try to decode my dreams in the evening when I had some time. And it just was confusing me more than ever.
Mhm.
Eventually, I came to see all of that as fortune cookie dream analysis. It just doesn't get us to that click.
Wow.
It's some projection that, it may give us an idea, but it's not the way we want to go about trying to discover what our dreams are about. I kept journaling them. I'm a journaler by nature. So they were just finding their way into my journal, these dreams of the night. I didn't know what to do with them, but I started to have interesting synchronicities start to occur between dreams I was having and things showing up in my waking life. And it was just telling me on some innate level, these dreams are not to be dismissed. There's something amazing here, information, knowledge I don't have consciously. And it just kept propelling me to want to learn more. And eventually I got really good mentors and training and dream work theory practice. And I just never lost my passion. And the more I kept working with them, they started to actually become a form of self-help for me and were helping me get
Fascinating.
beyond the things holding me back in my corporate life. And I would say my dream life was really what helped me propel through my corporate career I did build because they were constantly along for the ride helping me once I really started to learn to go inward with them.
Oh, it's fascinating. Yeah, I'm getting the sense that when you talked about discovering those first books, that dream work feels to me to be kind of broken down and understood and have that light shining on it. The interactive nature of working with someone and discussing them, it seems like a key component of it. Is that what you find?
Yeah, what I had to discover for myself is like many of us, I just wanted someone to tell me what this dream meant. Like,
Sure.
just tell me.
Yeah.
And so I loved the idea that I could just look up the answer. And unfortunately, I found it's not at all like that. It's not that easy. Now, sometimes we may have someone outside of us, and yet still it falls flat of doing real, like opening us up to an awareness that that dream can bring for us without doing the inner work. So really, oftentimes when I sit down with someone to talk about their dreams, their initial perception may be I'm just going to tell them what their dream means. And what ends up happening is they find out what their dream means
Yes.
through the exploration. I think of myself more of a guide,
Hmm.
sharing with them, helping them see the techniques we can use for them to unlock the meaning of their dreams because I don't know why someone else had a dream. All I have are my projections and my associations and my experiences, but I'm still not the dreamer. And the dreamer always holds the ultimate keys to unlocking why they had a dream. And it's so amazing when someone gets there on their own. You can tell someone what you think their dream means. They can maybe glean something from that. But when you innately get to an answer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it clicks in a way that no one outside of you can help it click in quite that way.
I love that. Yeah, I can see that guidance, and I also am wondering, you have all your learnings around the people you studied with and everything you know about dreams, and then you have the client in front of you. And is it really, do you sometimes think about the work you do is also like channeling information that comes through that you're getting from the client in front of you?
I do think that innately there's an intuitive
Hmm.
aspect, maybe more in the sense that I really try to bring myself into a presence with the person I'm with and ensure that I'm really entering myself into the dream with them, having a sense of curiosity, really hearing where they're taking me with descriptions and ideas, and trying actually really hard not to allow myself to think I know what their dream means. But with that said, by nature, I tend to be a highly intuitive individual. So there are times when someone is just so stuck in the rational element of thinking about a dream, they're not really yet aware of how metaphor and symbolism can work, that I may at times, based on things I'm hearing from them and an intuitive idea that's coming to me, I may share what I am thinking by saying things like, from what you're telling me around this going on in your life in this dream, I can't help but wonder, is it possible? Or if it were my dream, I might consider, just to see how does that resonate. But I know 100% when we're hitting on a truth for a dreamer, it will resonate with them. And so I am really firmly held in a belief that I don't want to tell someone what their dream means, because people do tend to look at an expert as, well,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to take your information and assume you're right. And I don't think we should ever do that with our dream life. When I stopped trying to think someone outside of me knew what my dream meant and started to look at it more like I'm building a relationship with my higher self within, that's unfolding stories that are based on some true story I'm going through, that only my dream language would put it together in quite that way. The more I started to learn how to go inward with it, the more it really started to unlock an amazing resource, inspiration, insights, ahas.
It sounds like such fun work. I'm going to back up and ask you some maybe more basic questions about how we dream. And this one is a yes, no, but you'll answer it with more than that. Do we dream every night?
Yes, if we're having a full night of sleep, or at least a decent night of sleep, we're going to go through 4 to 6 sleep cycles in a full night of sleep. So not everyone's getting a full night of sleep. But every time we complete even one sleep cycle, and that is for most of us going to take somewhere between 90 to 120 minutes. So every hour and a half to 2 hours, we're going through a complete sleep cycle. And within that, a healthy sleep cycle is going to include REM sleep, light sleep, deep sleep. So we have some of that in every sleep. Not to say every human being's sleep is operating efficiently, sufficiently, and perfectly. But in a full sleep cycle, a normal sleep cycle will include some REM. And REM is our most dream fortified phase. So REM stands for rapid eye movement, and we call it that because you can see someone's like eyes flittering behind their eyelids. That's been studied to show that is when we have our most vibrant, vivid story like dream realm happening.
Okay.
And everybody, for the most part, seems to be dreaming, or at least getting into REM sleep for periods of time. It's estimated by the National Sleep Foundation that we're having 4 to 6 dreams over the course of a full night of sleep, but we do tend to, on average, forget 95 to 99% of everything we dream.
Okay. Okay. And even if we forget those dreams, are they still benefiting us? Are they still transforming us in some way?
Absolutely. I have a full personal belief that if we were having to pay attention to our dreams, work with our dreams, for them to do their work, we would have a much better natural working memory of dreams. They would be more rationally making sense to our waking minds. So it is an unconscious processing that's happening, and with us doing nothing, it has amazing work it's doing. And studies that have been done by Harvard, by PNAS, illustrate we come back better at tasks we're learning, at creative problem solving, just for having gotten REM sleep. We don't have to do anything with it for it to have its natural work it's doing. So most important is get good, healthy sleep. And with that, you're going to get REM sleep. And with your REM sleep, you're going to be coming back that are able to thrive and cope with whatever's going on in your life without you doing a thing with that dream
Mm.
rationally in your waking mind. I like to see it, though, that we can turbocharge that natural work. If we do bring consciousness into the equation in ways that are beneficial for connecting with what our dream life's doing, well, that's where I started to see them as these amazing resources for self-help, navigation, ideation. Like, wow, why wouldn't I want to take full advantage of that?
This conversation's just infusing me with so many questions, but revelations too. Because when I think about sleep, and if we think about how it's often said, it was always said when I was growing up, 8 hours of sleep a night. But we focus so much on our awake time. And then a lot of us might have sleep disturbances and challenges. Yet we kind of dismiss that, even the physical need to pay attention to one third of our day. And so to me, this conversation today is like, wow, how do we nurture both the physical side of sleep and then that unconscious dream work side of it? And I'm getting that. I think when I read your bio, that word integrative was used. So these things are not separate from each other either. But when we talk about that physical side, what do you recommend for nurturing that physical side of sleep and how to think of it? Because I'm just thinking for the first time of like, wow, we do dismiss our sleep hours in a sense.
Oh yeah. And for me, when sleep wasn't something I really ever thought of until I started to have sleep issues.
Mm,
And in my early corporate career, the first company I worked for, as I recall, the president was said to be having an outside consultant coming in to train the top executives how to get by on only 4 hours of sleep.
mm,
There's a lot of messaging many of us in many generations have lived with that have housed this belief pattern, thought pattern we have that, I'll sleep when I'm dead, sleep is lazy. In corporate settings, it's worn often like a badge of honor to get by on minimal sleep. And people would be like, at these events we'd all be at, and the next morning, there's a lot of bragging going on about, I got 2 hours, I got 3 hours. They were out all night partying, but they, of course, it was not doing them any favors.
right.
I found myself struggling with the mindset of sensing for myself, I really need this sleep, but also a lot of messages that I've got stuff I need to accomplish. And there's not
Mhm.
enough time in the day. And I have all these problems and worries and issues. And so I would lay there working out things, trying to work them out in my mind. When I really started to then want to explore what happened to my sleep. Why does this happen?
Mhm.
Now, at that time, sleep was not such a big topic.
Right.
I'm almost glad, because if it were happening to me today, I would have so many marketing messages telling me, just take this pill, just take that
Mhm.
supplement, just, use this device, score it, judge it. Instead, I didn't know anything other than to figure out naturally, how do I go back to healthy sleep? And
Right.
I think one of our problems we have as a society is we're getting all these messages that something outside of us should help us fix that sleep, rather than working with the innate mechanism that is our body designed to sleep. And if we're not sleeping, there's usually something that isn't functioning properly, that has us out of our natural rhythm. And we should start there, not try to
Mm,
mask what's happening with a pill, which they all wean in their effectiveness over time anyway.
yeah.
So I would say our first step is to start to realize, yes, we're really wake centric as human beings. That's the nature of being a human. The more A type control personality we have, the more we may struggle with the bed. I struggled with that reality because that's my
Yeah.
tendency to be in my mind a lot, want everything controlled, figured out before I could relax. But the more I started learning about what was happening as we sleep
Mhm.
and the benefit of the dreaming, I could start to bring myself to a place where I could trust in the unconscious process that happens in the night, and trust that even though my mind is really focused on this little bit of waking consciousness that we tend to think is all we are, is just a small piece of my greater wholeness of who I am. And when I stay awake, lying there worrying about something in my waking mind, I'm telling really the other 95% of my awareness I'm not conscious of that I get your shift too. And
Mm-hmm.
by handing it off, I would be better in the morning. And the more I could start to trust in like actually honoring that there's a whole other part of me that needs this sleep. And if I give that to that part of me, I will come back better. I could start to like hand things off a little better. So I think it really begins first and foremost with honoring the process, actually trusting there's more to who we are than these waking minds, and being willing to hand things off, sleep on it, so to speak, and trust in that process. And of course, there's all kinds of ways we can set ourselves up to have better sleep, which I do a lot of that work in my life.
Yeah. And have you seen, I feel like I know, well, my partner for sure, but, a fair amount of women who have what I would be now considered chronic sleep wakings in the night. Do you find through your work that even if you've had chronic disruptions, that it's possible to reclaim a really beautiful night of sleep?
Oh yeah, I was
Hmm.
totally in a chronic state of insomnia for a very good chunk of time, quite a few months, if not a good year
Hmm.
plus, maybe 2 years of my early corporate career. I couldn't sleep through a night. I could fall asleep most nights. I was exhausted.
Hmm.
And then I would find myself up within a few hours, totally unable to let back go. Going for me, it was a lot of not being able to
Yeah.
like let go of worries, fears, doubts, issues, projects. I was tortured because a part of me was exhausted.
Yeah.
And then I was wired at the
Hmm.
same time. This
Hmm.
mind, most of us struggling with sleep, we don't even have a sleep issue. We have a hyper aroused mind. And learning to better come to a way
Hmm.
of owning, I control more of this mind than I give myself credit for, and having an intention and really a determination to not allow our
Hmm.
minds to derail the process is for many of us the first place, which is big work in and of
Yes.
itself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's quite common for people to fall asleep without any issue and then not be able to get back to sleep.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of moving into the land of dream work, I would say a first question would be, what do you find really fulfilling about working with people on their dreams?
Oh my gosh, I get chills just thinking about how many times I could almost cry just thinking about how many times I have watched someone just drop into this newfound awareness that something
Mhm.
that was always there is a life changer if they could just start to connect with it. One of my very first people I worked with on her dreams, it was like she was like, oh my God, 15 years of therapy. And all I had to do was pay attention to this dream. It is so often that
Mm.
we are having information that's really there that we just don't know how to look at. We don't know how to connect with it. It
Mhm.
doesn't make sense to our rational mind. Most of us grew up in an environment where we were told to dismiss it,
Yeah.
so we get pretty good at that.
Mhm.
And to know it was always there, and that all it takes is a willingness to start to build that relationship, and know that, yeah, it's still not, I still wake up after 30 years of working with dreams and studying dreams and working with my own dreams that I'm like, what the heck is that about? And I know that I've got some inner work to do to go into inward, because my dreams are working on the stuff I haven't fully figured out, just like
Mhm.
everybody's are. And if we can work with that dream, we're really opening ourselves up to a higher self within that
Mm.
does have really important work it's doing. And by us paying attention to that important work it's doing, we can become enlightened about something we may be stuck in, a pattern, a thought pattern, a habit, a way of situation that maybe we could tweak if only we saw it in a new paradigm. And dreams are great about busting us out of these paradigms we're stuck in and seeing things anew. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
the most exciting part for me is when I actually connect someone to that process of just wanting to have a relationship with their dreams, looking forward to going to sleep tonight, but for chance to dream.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the dream awareness is really just popping up for me because I do think we want to have a relationship. We want to, and I love how you're saying that again. That wisdom resides in the person in front of you. I mean, that's definitely a coaching tenet that I've learned through all my trainings, and that's kind of a newer concept for a lot of people that they house the answers within. And I'm excited just over time to really dive into your work more because I it fascinates me. Would you be able to kind of give an example of a memorable dream interpretation that you've had with a client, if anything comes to mind?
Yeah, no, there are so many. I think, let's see which one I would pull to. It's probably the most exciting and interesting are when someone connects with a dream that was really scary for
Mm,
them. We're very frightened by dreams very often. And we could wake up from a dream and be really afraid of what is that dream saying? What is that dream telling me? What does that dream say about me? And media has perpetuated a lot of fortune teller ideas around dreams where many people think dreams are, future tellers. If I wake up from a really scary dream, I don't even want to think about that dream because God forbid it happen. So I had one person reach out to me very upset about a dream she had had. She really didn't even want to admit she had the dream, but she couldn't let go of it. It was really scary to her. And it sounds like a horrible dream, although I don't any longer hear any dream. And I see it as this beautiful metaphor, usually right out the gate,
mm,
knowing like any shadow, we shine a light on it, it tends
yep.
to disappear. And it can be so empowering to get underneath the why of a really scary dream. So in her dream, she was placing her son as an infant into a coffin. And that was being like kind of taken down like a conveyor into to being cremated. And she woke up from this dream and this visual that she had in this dream of literally sending her son off as an infant into cremation was more than she could like not want to talk about. And you can imagine as a mom, what a horrible dream to wake up from. Now, I have come to find that the best way we can start to connect with and we say meaning of a dream. I think it's probably better rather than say what does this dream mean? It's probably more appropriate to say what is this dream processing?
Okay.
Because I don't think every dream has like some hidden meaning we're supposed to like decode. I think what we're seeing is a way we happen to digest what we're
Hmm.
going
Hmm.
through, how
Hmm.
we're processing. I think of dreams like a digestive system. We take in food each day, then it's got to get broke down. Where does this go? What do I do with it? What just gets flushed away? We have experiences throughout the day. It's been shown in dream research, dreams tend to flag and prioritize those things we've placed importance and emotion on. And we got to digest that. What do I do with this? Where does
Yeah.
this go? How do I process this? How does this evolve my sense of self, the story of me? If we really want to get underneath what is this dream processing, the best thing we can do is think about the emotional story happening in the dream and bridge that over to our waking life. Like, where do I know that emotional
Yeah.
story? And so emotion becomes really one of our best clues for what is this
Mm,
dream about. And so that's always where I'll begin. I asked her while you were in the dream and you were in the process of
yeah.
sending your son into the like being cremated, what was going on for you emotionally? And she said, "Well, that's the thing. Like I wasn't worried about it. I knew he was happy. He looked happy. I knew he was okay. He was going to be okay. And so now we have more of an idea that, well, this dream was processing something that on an emotional level isn't as scary as the dream might first appear. And I asked her to bridge that emotion. I said, when it comes to your son, and it ended up her son at this point was in his early 30s. I said, and when it comes to potentially something going on with your son, like, where do you know this emotion, this idea of like, he's okay. I don't have to worry. He's happy. And as we started to work more through that conversation, well, that was a place she was at with her son after having been through quite a horrible ordeal of
Mm-hmm.
his addiction. He was
Okay.
going through a heroin addiction, and she was a very big part of taking him back in under her wing, babying him through this, really being mom again to a young adult, trying to get him clean.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in a really good place. He was
Mm.
suddenly like with a wonderful girl, with a good relationship. They were getting a new place together, and all those emotions were there. Like, he's
Yeah.
happy, he's good, he's doing well. And so then we looked at, well, what's the storyline showing? The storyline is showing him back at an infancy,
Mm.
and we're having to kind of like watch him be sent into like being basically put in a
Mm-hmm.
coffin and cremated. And as we worked with the story, how does that tie in with what is she going through in this emotional story where she knows those emotions? Well, she knew she didn't have to like have him be her baby anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she was having to let go of this idea, I have to baby him. And
Mm.
so when you think about the dream from this more symbolic and metaphoric nature, really we came to a place where she felt she could see this dream was quite beautiful, that
Yeah.
on some level this knowing he's happy, he's good, he's going to be okay. I don't have to hold on to this idea that I have to baby him, he's my little baby. I can
Mm-hmm.
like do away with that mindset. Was really much more of a metaphor that might have been taking place in that dream.
Mm.
So it was a very empowering feeling for her all of a sudden
Yeah.
to see that, wow, look what my dream mind is showing me. I can burn this idea that I have this little infant I have to take care of, and
Mm-hmm.
he's okay. I can let that go.
Yeah, it's amazing. It makes me think of it's a powerful example. In our dreams, often there'll be people, let's say it's someone in our inner circle, and they've done something, and we wake up from the dream and we take it literally. Like, what's the deal with that? Like, literal versus dream
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. So people are probably the most confusing symbol for us to
Hmm.
work with in
Okay.
dreams. And we always want to think of the person as the person. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
were in my dream last night. Or if our partner cheated on us, we're mad at them in the morning. Like, how could you? You must be doing something wrong. My subconscious must know, right? And there are some rules of thought with dream workers that everything in the dream is the dreamer. Now, I have a
Mm.
tendency with all the different dream work methods I've worked with, my foundation tends to be, I first and foremost always try to find the emotional story of the dream, and then the pieces fall into place.
Okay.
So sometimes if I'm in a dream and I'm dealing with, in this case, a way I'm feeling about my son and his being okay, and I've been having to baby him, maybe my dream creates a story around that feeling and what I'm moving through that also includes a visual representation of my son because he's a part of that story.
Hmm.
Other times we may be in a dream where, why did that person show up? Like, I don't even like, I don't think of like, why are they showing up? And it may be more about a representation of what we're dealing with. So one little example I'll share of like why that, how that might play out. A woman shared with me once that I keep having this dream about this woman at work, Trish, and I don't know why. Like, she's showing up in my dreams a lot in these last like couple of weeks. And I asked her, well, what do you know about Trish? And she said, well, that's just it. I hardly know this woman. I said, well, what do you think you know about her? And she says, well, my friend works for her. She's my friend's boss. And I just know she's a notorious micromanager. And I said, well, so within the last couple of weeks, like, where is micromanaging, this trend, there, this personality trait characteristic of micromanaging showing up a lot in your life? And suddenly she dropped into an awareness that, well, yeah, she was in the midst of like a remodel at her house. And though she doesn't see herself as being, she doesn't like micromanaging or micromanagers, but all she's doing is walking around and like, why is that colored on that wall? That drawer is supposed to be like, why is that crooked? And she's just micromanaging all these people doing work in her house, and she just feels like she's having to watch everything they do. And so here we have an example potentially where a dream is just helping her process and integrate what it feels like to have her inner Trish along for the ride. That personality trait characteristic she doesn't equate
Mm,
herself to, but that's like Trish.
yeah.
So sometimes what we want to do when the people are showing up is ask, how would I describe that person? If in a
Mhm.
nutshell, what do I think they are like? How would I like describe them in a few words? And then within the context of the dream and what's going on in our life, like,
Mm,
where is that trait
yeah.
having to be connected with?
Yeah. I'm loving that because we're sleeping and we're dreaming, yet what is it here to awaken us to? So sometimes it can be, like you said earlier, that shadowy side, or sometimes maybe something that's wants to be awakened within. Yeah, I want to ask a few questions, but the one that's coming to me first is about you've said a couple times two words, your higher self. Okay. So how do you think of that being a dream work specialist and during our sleeping hours? When you think about our higher self, is that our soul? Is that something guiding us from outside of ourselves? Like, how do you think about that?
So when I say higher self, I've come to recognize that, first of all, neuroscience is showing we're probably aware of about 5% of our cognition. So these waking sense of selves are these kind of egoic senses of selves are really a persona we've collapsed into to like, this is who I am.
Right.
I think I know who I am. But you know, in the dream realm, Carl Jung spoke of dreams are often helping us individuate, really become a more whole person. We have all these dispersed parts of self. We have all these parts of ourselves we don't even accept. And dreams are forcing us to sometimes learn how to confront or integrate or try to connect with all aspects of
Okay.
self.
Beautiful.
So I guess what I've come to believe is this part of me, I think is me, that I wake up and collapse into and say, this is who I am, is just this minuscule part of who I am. Because
Mm,
95% of what drives me, of my awareness, I'm not consciously aware of. There's a much bigger there's something much bigger. Now, I'm a very spiritual person. I do believe that it is probable that this part of me, this higher awareness part of me, may have been before, maybe again, maybe it's been through multiple lives. I don't know for sure
mhm,
how
mhm,
all that works, but I do think it's something much bigger than my consciousness can understand.
mhm.
And that when we go to sleep tonight and
Yeah.
we are in our dream realm, we are much more connected to that greater awareness that's playing with our life stories, or maybe having other types of experiences. I don't think all dreams are some psyche
Yeah.
work we're doing in the dream realm. I think we can pierce through, spirit can pierce through. I think we're
Mhm.
connecting to a greater wholeness, a greater oneness. So I think there's many types of dreams. Most of them that we remember, I think, is a type of psyche work we do in the dream realm through this greater
Yeah.
awareness. Because let's face it, our consciousness could never create a dream.
Right. Right.
Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't know how to create a dream. And even if I become aware I'm in a dream and I think I'm participating in controlling the dream, there's always a bigger dreamer that makes sure that, you know, the rest is taken care of. So what is that part of self? I don't know that we can fully grasp the
Ooh, yeah.
immensity of
Yeah.
who we really are. But I do think that who we think we are is just a tiny, tiny piece of that higher awareness that's connected to something bigger and that has so much more awareness. So that's babbling. I don't know if I answered your
No.
question, but that's kind of what comes to me is there's something bigger. I
Yep.
can't know for sure, but I know I can trust it.
Well, thanks for that was teaching for me and teaching for all the listeners. I'm thinking that that higher self is with us 24/7, yet it's when we sleep and relax and get the other 95% a little out of the way that it can almost use it as its playground to help us. And I love your processing. Can you talk a minute about explaining the difference between regular dreams and visitation dreams? I think before my mom died 8 years ago, I didn't really know about visitation dreams. So please let us know, what is a visitation dream and how is it different?
Great question. I think it's such an amazing topic. For anyone who does end up going on to my podcast, which is Dream Interpretation Station, my last podcast episode was on visitation dreams. I think, in a nutshell, what I would say is when we have a deceased individual, usually a loved one, show up in our dream realm, you could call that a visitation.
Mm,
Some people would say anytime someone who has passed comes into our dream, it must be a visitation. Now, I've come to believe that that's probably not always the case. Just like when I wake up and if my husband was in my dream, I might say, "Oh, you were in my dream," but I sense and I know it was a dream manifestation of him. It wasn't him in my dream.
okay.
And I do think dreams, our dream mind doesn't differentiate the living and the deceased in this clear way that we do, that says, "Oh, we can't use them as a symbol because they're passed
Yeah.
away." Just like we may use a living person as a symbol in our dream life, our dream mind may pull to a person who's passed if we're dealing with a story where personality traits, characteristics, associations that are so equated to that person can
Yeah.
play a role. So I
Okay.
think sometimes they're just in the dream. I had a dream
Mm,
last
mm-hmm,
night
mm-hmm.
where I was experiencing a dream with someone who has passed, but they were obviously just part of the dream story, kind of stuck in the story like I
Okay.
was. They didn't like have a particular role to play that felt visitation like to me. Now, other times we may have a dream where someone comes in and it's often thought to be a true visitation of spirit. And I do believe personally, spirit can pierce the dream realm, that we'll often have a type of energy in that dream or a particular kind of conversation. There's truly a soul connection
Yeah.
happening. Like it does
Mhm.
feel like they came to embrace us or give us a message. There might be a lighting about the dream. There might be just an innate knowing. I connected with this person in my dream. I didn't just have a dream where they happened to play a role. For yourself, when you had what you felt was a visitation dream, do you have your own experience where you just sense I had a true connection?
Yeah, I think, I have 5 siblings, so and then my dad had passed about a year and a half ago. And I think sometimes we will share the dreams that come to us with our parents. And I know for myself, it's almost like the qualities we describe sometimes are different, where sometimes it just seems like a figure who's along for the dream ride. And then at other times, it's got a more like ethereal quality to it, as almost as if you could touch and sense the
Yeah,
person who was in the dream. And so, even for either myself, I feel like if I took my mother, she's been more of a player in the story than she has been like a true essence,
yeah.
where maybe she was coming to take care of me, let's say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I've had definitely dreams of deceased loved ones that I could work with that dream and see why they were showing up as part of a dream story. I have had a couple of dreams. I have every belief in my heart were visitations. And my first
Mm,
experience of that was my great grandmother. I had a dream where I was getting this amazing hug from my great grandmother. And when I woke up from this dream, just like it was this beautiful connection and hug. And I thought, oh, she's hugging me goodbye in this dream. I called my grandmother that morning because I wanted to go visit my great grandmother who was in a care facility. I thought maybe I was having a message that I didn't have much time because it felt like a hug goodbye. And my grandmother said, honey, I was just about to let you know great grandma passed away this morning. I will never lose my hug goodbye.
Mm,
And for me, it's as real a memory as any memory I have of my great grandmother.
mm.
And I do wholeheartedly feel like her spirit and my spirit connected in the dream realm in that moment.
That's so beautiful. It really is. Thank you for sharing that. Leah, I really want to point the listener to your dream interpretation podcast for sure. I'm excited to listen to it myself. Would you, just as we round out the interview, the conversation, is there anything that you would offer to the listener about specific, technique they could use to remember their dreams more vividly?
Yeah, it's frustrating for some people. It feels like they don't have a connection with this dream realm. And even if, they wanted to, they don't have any dreams showing up.
Yeah.
And we're all in our own kind of state of dreaminess. And sometimes you're in a dream drought, and sometimes like they start showing up. And sometimes we're in a time in our life where we just don't feel we have even time if we wanted to. So I say this first, it starts with an intention. Most of us have learned to dismiss our dream life readily. No one in your life is mad at you for having done that. Many people in your life, if you want to talk about your dreams, their eyes will roll into the back of their head, like, oh gosh, because it's this personal thing and it doesn't really affect them the way that it affects us. So I would say it starts with just deciding I want to connect with this aspect of who I am and these experiences I'm having. And maybe set the stage before you go to bed. Have a way to capture a dream in the morning. Have a dream journal on your nightstand or a pad of paper and a pen, or even your, recorder on your smartphone could be a way to capture a dream without feeling like I have to write something down. When you wake in the morning, we tend to collapse into a very wake centered mindset right out the gate. Like, what day is it? Who am I? What am I doing? And we think about that and get out of bed as fast as possible. We really have this magic moment. Morning hours are our heaviest dream time. REM sleep gets heavier and heavier loaded in the morning hours. So when you wake in the morning, you were probably just dreaming, even if you don't remember it. I like to collapse right back into whatever sleep position I was in, just be with that groggy state at least a minute to 3 minutes before I jump up for the day, see if something rekindles in. Even if I knew I had a dream, just laying there and letting it solidify in my thoughts, go round it a couple times, grab whatever details before I sit up.
Yeah.
And then be willing to like write it down, talk about it, think about it, consider it, and you're programming your subconscious mind that you care. The more we pay attention to something, the more we give it attention, the more it'll start to naturally show up. So dream journaling is a way you could just get more dreams to show up by starting a dream journal. And maybe in the first number of days you're writing, I don't have a dream this morning. But you're trying, but I feel kind of sad. I wonder what that's about. Like, even if you just try to start like kindling this and make it a point, your subconscious mind will start to like
Yeah.
get the signal, oh, we're trying to remember.
It's good.
And then from there, when they show up, if you're like me, you're not going to know what to do with them at first, as I was, but I was willing to give them space in my mind, just like a story of our waking realm. We can ponder it, we can think about it, we can consider it, and think first and foremost about what's the emotional story and where do I know that emotional story. And we're already moving in a better direction to build our connection with our dreams.
Really helpful. I love the intentionality for myself around preparing for sleep and preparing for dreams in a way. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a person who puts them in my notes app when I remember them. And I think it's especially valuable what you just said about don't rush out of bed, because even if I rush out of bed to go use the bathroom, I'll be, brushing my teeth even, and I'll be like, oh, like trying to get those details. But maybe, like you said, if I would have just pondered in bed for like, just give yourself 2 minutes. Yes.
Solidify it a
Yes.
little in a working memory that's coming back online
Okay.
about a minute after we wake. Just give it
Oh,
a chance to get in there a little bit more firmly.
that's beautiful. I could speak to you for another hour easily, but finishing up, where can people find you?
So I am online via my website where I do private coaching, both for integrative adult sleep coaching and for dream work at Leah, Leah, Ann Bolen, Bolen.com. So www.leahannbolen.com. If you want to check out my podcast, it's Dream Interpretation Station, which you can go to www.dreaminterpretationstation.com or anywhere you listen to your podcast. You could do a search for it.
Great. Great. Thank you for
I
the
also do
resources.
sessions at Miraval. So if you're ever in Arizona visiting
Yes.
Miraval, we can connect that way as well.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here. It's
Thanks
been
for
such a
having
joy,
me.
and I've learned a ton. So, listener, check out Leah's work. I know you will. There's going to be so much interest here, and thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.